So, Alice, it's so nice to see you and talk to you.
Nice to see you.
It's hard to believe that just a year ago we were together in Enna celebrating the Venerdì
The Holy
Santo,
Friday.
Good
Yeah.
Friday. And I'm excited to talk to you about your hometown, Caltanissetta, and Holy Week there, which is epic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot to talk about. So let's just dive in because I want to keep these conversations somewhat short so that people can really get into it and enjoy it. So you grew up in Caltanissetta, so you've been seeing this celebration of Holy Week your whole life. And not only that, but your family has been in Caltanissetta for, we don't even know how many generations.
Exactly. Because we completely lost track of our origins. We know that we have been here in Caltanissetta since ever, maybe. I don't know.
It's amazing. For Americans to hear something like that, it's just, we're astounded by that. It's really amazing to have, to meet someone with roots in such a place.
But consider that for us is the opposite way, because we are so fascinated about your possibility to go back in time and to say, my ancestors went to US from, I don't know, England, from Italy, from France.
Yes.
And it's fascinating, absolutely.
Well, and you know, just my family, my French Canadian side, because I am a quarter French Canadian, we were able to trace our roots back to 1640 to France. So my relatives have been in North America since 1640 in Canada, but still, my Italian family, of course, didn't come until 1913 is when my grandfather came from Porticello, but yeah.
Yesterday.
These are stories as well that are interesting to share. So anyway, so let's talk about Holy Week. Obviously starts with Palm Sunday, which has happened because we're now in the middle of Holy Week, and ends with, in Sicily, it ends on Pasquetta, or Easter Monday. But tell me about sort of, how does this whole thing kick off in Caltanissetta, and what's the preparation like for the people who are involved in the celebrations?
The preparation starts the day after the Pasquetta, because you start work for the next Easter just the day after it ends. And of course, all the brotherhoods, all the people involved, they really spend the whole year thinking to the next Holy Week.
Right. So it's a really big deal for people, considering the amount of time they put into it. Right.
I would say without any doubt that for Caltanissetta, the Holy Week is the week. So
we have to bring people to come and celebrate with you there. That's one of the things I love to be able to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Also because being in the center of Sicily, it's very useful to go to Palermo, to go to Agrigento, to go everywhere, all around the island, and be back at night to take part to one of those amazing processions and events that we have.
So how long have these events been taking place? Do we know? Do we have a history of the generations that have participated?
We do have a history. It's a pretty much complicated history, because it seems that there was a very ancient tradition that took place back in time. Then they stopped for a long period. Then they took again this tradition. Then they changed something. So it is a tradition that evolved through the centuries.
So are we talking about like the 1400s is when this started, the 1500s?
1500s more. 1500s
okay, so
more.
when the Spanish were in power, basically, during the Spanish rule. So would you say some of these traditions all over the island, in fact, are really influenced by the Spanish culture? Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have a very Spanish religious feeling
Right.
during all the week. And I can tell you that the only year I was not here in Caltanissetta to celebrate Easter, I was in Seville, and it wasn't like missing home, because I completely felt at home. And Seville is our twin sister for the Holy Week.
Right.
So there's this strong relation.
Right. So on Palm Sunday, which is the day that Jesus arrives in Jerusalem, right? So what is the this is obviously the opening of Holy Week in Caltanissetta. So what happens on that day?
So on that day, we have the procession of Gesù Nazareno,
So
that
Jesus
arrives, yes, Jesus of Nazareth, who arrives on top of a boat full of flowers.
Right. So I'm gonna share my screen for a second just to show the picture of this. Oh, that's the Signore. So here is the boat full of flowers. Can you see that on your screen? I don't know, but
yep, exactly.
There he is arriving.
And you can see that there's a W that stands for Viva.
Yeah.
G, Gesù, N of Nazareth.
Right. And also, I think important to point out is how he's holding his hand and the way he's presented. Talk about that a little bit, because that's a very symbolic gesture.
Absolutely. It's the blessing. It's the blessing. So Jesus Christ is entering the town, and he's blessing the town.
Okay, excellent. And then what happens after that on Monday, for example, Monday and Tuesday? What is the...
So Monday and Tuesday are rather calm days, but since a few years, it's not such a old tradition, but it's taking a good place in the Holy Week. We also have some sort of theatrical performances representing the Passion of Christ. So you will have the trial of Jesus Christ, you will have the Last Supper, then the trial. Here you have some scenes, example. There's a very important group of actors performing all the different steps of Jesus Christ's Passion.
Right, telling the story, acting it out. Now, so do they act it out on a stage? How do they do it? Where do they do this production?
They do that in different places in town. So there's a place where they will perform the taking of Jesus Christ, another one where they will perform the killing of Jesus Christ, and so on.
Right. So this story throughout the week, this the whole story between when Jesus arrives in Nazareth to the crucifixion and the resurrection on Easter Sunday. This story, it sounds like it's told many times during the week.
Yes, in different ways, yes, because you will have then the Vari Cedri on the Holy Wednesday and the Vare on the Holy Thursday. So what is a Vara? A Vara is a statue.
Yeah.
The Vara is human size. I mean, so it's real size. They are huge, very big, because they represent human bodies with their usual size. The Vari Cedri, it means small Vara, and they are like miniatures of the big statues.
Right. So in this picture where I pulled up here, you can see the people.
In this one,
around
you have the Vari Cedri. So the small one. The other one was the one of a Vara, so the big one.
Right. So tell me, your family has a history with these Vari Cedri.
Yes, absolutely. I absolutely love the Holy Week in Caltanissetta, also because I really feel I'm part of it. I'm part of it because I've always lived in the city center, And I have to thank my parents, because since I was a little kid, they used to take me, my sister, to attend to all those fantastic processions and so on. But also, yes, my family is strongly related to all those traditions, because my great-grandfather called a sculptor to build one of the variceggi. So one of the small statues was done by my great-grandfather, and so it belongs to my family since the beginning. And I can tell you that among my favorite memories, there's the one of the Holy Wednesday afternoon, during which we used to go to our cousin's house to put flour in the varicella, to check if the lights were okay. And we used to go with them in procession, so accompanying and going with them till night. And even if we were children, I say we because I was always with my sister in that, we didn't go home till it was over.
Right. So tell me about that. So that's in the evening, right?
Yep.
And
Wednesday.
who carries? So it's like this statue scene. I'm going to pull the picture up again. It's this statue scene, and people are carrying it. I can see some men on the right side here.
Yes,
they have it like on. It's sort of a platform, and then there are poles, right, that they have on their shoulders.
No, they don't have them on their shoulders. They have a kind of pedestal that has wheels.
And this one has wheels. Okay.
Yeah. So they will push and pull this little thing, on top of which you will have the varicella.
Okay. And who is actually doing the pulling and the pushing?
It depends. It depends, because for the small one, usually you will pay someone, or you will give them something to do that. But of course, families, there will be sometimes brotherhoods that will take charge of it. For the big ones is different, because the small one belong to like private owners. The big one belong sometimes to some private owners, former sulfur mine owners, to the different brotherhoods and guilds. So it's a little bit different.
All right, well, let's talk about that, because this is sort of a thing that I think people who are unfamiliar with how these processions work and how these feasts work in general, talk about the guilds, or the confraternities, or the fellowships, or the brotherhoods. There's all sort of different ways you can translate this these groups.
But also because there's a difference. There's a difference. Usually here in Caltanissetta we have guilds that are related to some like artisans, workers in general. It's not only religious. So we have something really important called the Real Maestranza, which is a group of different guilds that back in time, in the 1500s, were like a sort of a city army, small army. So they were in charge of protecting the town. And they got the nickname, the adjective of Real Maestranza, Royal Maestranza, by the King Ferdinand, who came to Sicily and visited Caltanissetta. And when he saw the Maestranza performing in a kind of parade, he said, okay, you deserve the adjective royal, because you are really strong. But then from a city army,
meaning that, so that like they're considered like knights in a way.
Sort of. But then it evolved from a local army in a group of guilds of workers, but workers that are like artisans. So you have bakers, carpenters, you have shoemakers, you have barbers, you have masons, different categories.
Okay, and so these groups get together and they're responsible for carrying these different statue scenes, which are we call vara.
It depends. It depends,
Okay.
because some guilds own a vara, some others don't.
Okay, and how many?
So
There are
not all the guilds own a vara, and not all the vara owners belong to a guild.
okay. So is
It's a
there
little
like
bit complicated, but
yeah,
you should come to see it. Otherwise, you will never understand it.
right? We have
You
to
must
come.
experience that.
Right. Well, like I said when we spoke earlier that I had been to Trapani on Good Friday, and so I saw
Mhm.
this there, and it's so moving, especially like you're saying, all these different people are involved, and the community effort involved in carrying these
Yeah.
statues, and also there's marching bands, right, that accompany so it's a
Exactly.
whole theatrical event. It's not just the people
It is.
carrying these through the streets of Caltanissetta. It's the bands are with them and they're sort of dancing with the music to keep in rhythm with each other, right?
Yeah, and this is really Spanish. This is
Mm-hmm.
really Spanish too. This is something that we have in common with Spain.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of rhythm in accompanying the procession.
Right. And
It's like a boat. It's like a boat on the waves.
a boat
Just
on
like
the
this.
waves, right? Right, because you have to be working together to make this happen. It can be very dangerous carrying these statues on the platform. I'm going to again pull up the picture so that people can see what we're talking about. How many of there are of these vara or vare? How many vare are there?
So the vare are 16, while the variceggi, so the small reproductions, are 19.
Okay, and what is 16 of what exactly, and 19 of what?
So they represent the different moments of the Passion of Christ.
Okay.
So they, the first one is the Last Supper.
Right.
So you have the representation of Jesus Christ around the table with his apostles having their dinner. And the last one is the Addolorata. So Mother Mary crying for Jesus Christ.
Right, right.
In the middle, you have the different steps. So here, example, you have the moment in which they are beating Jesus Christ in this picture. I remember that when I was a little kid, I was afraid of the guy on the left of the skin because he had a very bad face and expression, and we were all afraid of him.
Of course. Well, that's part of the theater. You're really
Very cruel.
Indoctrinated into this story.
Exactly.
Course. Right. Well, so we would call these in English, we call them the Stations of the Cross. And so when we go to church on Good Friday,
this is it.
Yeah, this is it. But the exciting thing about the way that this is done in Caltanissetta and other parts of Sicily is that the statues come to you, right? Because they're parading these around the city, through the city.
Exactly. And you know what? It's fantastic because during the rest of the year, all the vare, except for one, are kept in a kind of museum. So there's this nice, lovely place where you can see all the vare together.
Right.
But during the Holy Week, they move the vare into the cathedral, and the Holy Thursday afternoon, each vara goes in a different place of the town, near to the place where the, let's say, the boss of the guild lives.
Okay.
So it's nice because you will see them all around the town, and people will put flowers, will will make them beautiful and ready for the procession at night. Then they will meet around our major square, the square of the cathedral, at around 7. Then they will start the procession, and the procession will end really late at night. But it's beautiful.
2 o'clock
it's
in the
beautiful.
morning, something like that.
Something like that. Something like that. It depends. It depends.
So, okay, so we started with Palm Sunday, where we had my computer's doing all these noises.
Sure.
While we had Jesus of Nazareth arriving, right? We saw that boat with all the flowers. Monday, so Sunday night and Monday, they do the Passion of Christ. They do different scenes around the city. This is so exciting. And then Tuesday, they continue. Oh no, actually it's Monday and Tuesday night is the when they do.
Exactly. So you have Sunday is Jesus, then you have Mondays, then you have Monday, Tuesday, you have the Passion. Then on Wednesday is a really full day, because during the morning you have the procession of the Real Maestranza, together with yes, exactly, together with the clergy. And in the afternoon, you will have, late afternoon, night, you will have the bariceggi.
Right,
so it's
small,
a
small
day.
scenes coming out.
Exactly. Of course, I'm not talking about the religious masses and so on, because they follow the traditional calendar, let's say. Those are our special celebrations.
Right, they're very locally observed.
Exactly.
Right, until Thursday, and Thursday is when the 16
Thursday
come out.
Exactly, at night, and then it comes the Good Friday. The Good Friday.
So let's talk about Good Friday. So this is the culmination,
the Good Friday. Let's say that the Good Friday is the most religious and touching and moving moment of the whole week, because on that day we have the procession of the Lord of the town. Il Signore della
bring
città.
him up too, because this is quite a sight to see, the Lord of the town. How do you say this in Italian? Il Signore
della città.
Okay, Signore della città.
Signore da città. U Signore da città. In Sicilian is U Signore da città.
So
and
talk
U
to me
Signore
about
da città. U Signore da città has been for a long, long time our patron saint in Caltanissetta. Then there's a lovely story related to a plague, like the one of St. Rosalie in Palermo. It's the same plague, actually, because in 1625, the plague arrived in Sicily, and Caltanissetta was protected by the Archangel Michael, who became, from that moment on, our Saint Patron too. But the Lord of the town has been the first one, and maybe the most important. There's a lovely legend related to this statue. It's a small, dark wooden crucifix. It's ebony, maybe. And so people used to call it the Black Christ, il Cristo Nero. But the name should be the Lord of the town, il Signore della città. And it seems that this little crucifix was found by chance in a cave with candles.
They were still lit? Candles that were still lit?
Of course. Come on, what a question.
Of course.
Come on, what a question, Allison. What a question.
Right.
By some people who used to go in the countryside to pick vegetables, to pick up vegetables, to collect vegetables, and to sell them, and sell them into the local market. So let's say the humblest maybe of the the old market, the poorest, the simplest one. And they became, since that moment, the brotherhood that takes care of the lord of the town. And they do something really fantastic, really moving, because so during the Good Friday, you will have this amazing procession that starts rather early in the afternoon, around 5. So the statue is taken by this brotherhood. They go barefoot, and they carry on their shoulders not only the statue, but also this structure that surrounds the statue. And it's fantastic because, first of all, you will have the maestranza. Then you will have the complete clergy. Then you will have this brotherhood carrying this little statue with these golden structures full of flowers. But the most amazing thing is that they will sing a sort of a mourn, a sort of a, it's a very sad and particular song, because they sing the Passion of Christ, but it's a very strong Sicilian dialect that it's really difficult to understand, even if you are Sicilian, also because it has a melody that goes up and down, up and down. So you really must know the words to be able to understand them. But what is really fascinating is that you will never find a written version of their song, because
Right,
this is
so
something
you learn it
that
by ear from childhood.
yes, and that they pass one to the other. So there are young singers, there are old singer. They do a kind of a chorus alternating their voices, and it goes like a wave. It's so moving. It's so moving. And then there's like a cry for the whole community that says, "E gridiamo tutti." So now let's cry all together. It's so moving, sorry.
Is there a response? There is a call?
Yes, of course. They say, "E gridiamo tutti, viva la misericordia di Dio." Or, so,
and what does that mean?
Viva viva the Lord mercy.
Right, Lord have mercy, basically, is how we would translate that, right? Lord have mercy.
And it's so nice.
Wow. And they're barefoot, right? The people who are carrying this statue.
Exactly. And not only the people that are carrying the statue, but also all the believers that will follow the procession. Because after the statue, you will have the local authorities, of course, but then you will have a huge crowd of people, of believers walking behind the statue. And most part of them will be barefoot.
And what's the significance of walking barefoot? Why are people walking barefoot? What's the...
Because you do something like a promise, and if you get your grace, or if you want to get a grace, you will do your viaggio, so your path, barefoot. It's like not a self-punishment, but it's like, I'm doing this for you, to show you that I really do care.
Right, because Jesus suffered, and so the idea is that I will suffer in a way to display
In a
my
way.
faith. Right. Right. So it's very
Exactly.
moving. It's very emotional and different from Enna, which we experienced last year together, where they wear hoods to cover the emotions, right? Because there's the different confraternities there cover their faces.
Yes, but they wear hoods not only to cover emotions, but also to keep their concentration, to be focused in prayer, on prayers.
And so here you can see people's emotions, but it's part of the experience, part of what the whole celebration is for them.
Yep.
And then what happens at the end of this? And well, first of all, it starts when, in the evening at dusk, and then they procession around
the town. It doesn't end too late, because usually at 8:30, 9, you will have a short speech done usually by the bishop, who will give his blessing, who will talk to all the town, and then this crucifix will be taken again inside the church, where it is kept all the year long.
Can you see it all year? Is it somewhere on display all year, or is it behind, like the
no, it's possible. It's possible.
And Santa Lucia, they're behind
No, it's possible. It's possible to see it. It's possible to see it.
Okay, cool. So when I come to Caltanissetta to visit you, I'll be able to see
it. Absolutely. We will pay a visit to the Lord of the town.
Okay,
Signore della città.
Right. And then Holy Saturday, Easter Sunday, Pasquetta, what happens these days?
It depends, because this is more religious. You will have, of course, the end of the, let's say, representation, because of course you will have the resurrection on Sunday evening, and on Sunday morning there's again a very small procession of the maestranza that will accompany the clergy to the Holy Mass.
Okay, so they have a big mass on Sunday, obviously.
But let's say that everything, I don't want to say that everything ends on the Good Friday, but the top is the Good Friday.
Right. The highlight of the week is Good Friday. This is when the theater of the theater of the week is really culminated with the Lord of the City being processed throughout the city.
Exactly.
Wow. How cool.
It is.
So
it is.
I hope that we can in 2021 or some other time bring some people to experience this in person. That's the idea, right? Is that we want to share this really very special. I mean, this is extraordinary to have a whole week of activities like this in Caltanissetta and experience it.
It's something really interesting. It's something really moving. It's something really traditional. You can really feel the atmosphere, and you can really feel you are part of it.
Exactly. This is why
of course I didn't mention it, but of course you will have traditional street food. You will have all these things that go together as usually.
Of course. Like what? For example, what is the street food that you might eat during these days that you're following?
Pane panelle.
So panelle is the chickpea fritter, fried chickpea fritters, almost little pancakes, but they're salty, obviously, inside a bun, a sesame seed bun, perhaps, and they're warm, fresh out of the fryer. And that's when you put them. Are they with croccante or no? Or the cazzilli. In Palermo, we combine the two, right? So
yes, of course, you can combine also here, but the tradition says pane panelle.
Just panelle.
Pane panelle, or we call them croquet. We don't call them cazzilli. We call them croquet.
Right.
Sounds more posh.
Cazzilli is a bad word.
Come on, it's not. Or you will have nougat, because in Caltanissetta we have a fantastic production of nougat.
Nugget. And what is it made from, the nugget? What is it made of? Is it almonds?
Almonds.
Okay. Well, because in other parts of Italy, which people are maybe familiar with, like Torrone, this is made from hazelnut, for example, right? So we have to be clear that when you're talking about Sicilian nuggets, you're talking about almonds.
So you will always find stalls selling nougat. You will always find pane e panelle, things like that.
Right.
It is part of the tradition.
Right. And also, obviously, on Easter Sunday, do you get together with your family and you have a big meal?
Yes.
Right. So after Mass, then everyone goes home.
This is the tradition. And then you will have usually a celebration in the countryside on Pasquetta.
Easter Monday.
Which is the Easter Monday, exactly.
Right. So it's really a welcoming celebration of spring. That spring has arrived, and now we can go out into the countryside and enjoy nature and the bounty of what Mother Nature is bringing us.
But we could open a huge talk about the link between nature and religion.
Absolutely. Well, we'll do it another time, Alice. This is my favorite thing to talk about. Absolutely. The seasons and how Christianity is really follows this based on
something that for example, you will find in the churches during this week are the so-called lavureggi, which are little pieces of earth with some seeds, with some sprouts that will come out.
Oh, really? So how are they presented? Do they put them in like a little sacket, little, like some...
Usually you will find this kind of composition on top and around the altars inside the church. Also because you have to think that, okay, there's a strong symbolic meaning in that, but also Sicily has always been, the perfect place for agriculture.
Absolutely.
And in particular, inner Sicily is the place where we grew, we have been growing wheat since ever.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to close with you because there's the wheat behind you. But next episode of my Conversations in Sicily is going to be with Pierfilippo Spotto, and we're going to talk about the Arches of Easter, L'archi di Pane, L'archi di Pasqua, which is all about wheat, and San Biagio Platini, and how wheat is the main agricultural product there and the sustenance of the people in the center of Sicily. So I'm going to close this conversation with you. I'm going to stop recording in a second.
Perfect. So
going on to talk about the next.
It's fantastic. So it's like, it's like in a, I don't know, volleyball match. We can pass the ball to Pierfilippo and he can continue the talk.
Exactly. We'll pick it up from there. Alice, thank you so much. This has been so much fun.
Thank you so much, dear.
I really hope that we'll get to experience this together in the future and with clients. That's the idea, right? We want to have a bunch of people coming to experience the real hidden corner of Caltanissetta, which is just magnificent.
You can be sure that for me it will be a pleasure and an honor to have you as my guests in my hometown. So I'll wait you here.
Okay, thank you, Alice.
Be welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.